Quería decir de que nosotros estoy muy de acuerdo con el planteamiento y el enfoque en la aproximación que hace la Sister, porque queremos ser incluidos, queremos ser parte de la solución. No somos un problema, no somos el origen de los problemas que tiene Estados Unidos, para nada. Y no somos un peligro tampoco. Entonces, si queremos encontrar una solución, tenemos que también ser escuchados y también ser tomados en cuenta. No somos objeto, somos sujeto.
I'm very in agreement with what the sister said, in that we are not a problem for this country. If we want to be part of the solution, we have to be taken into account. We are not objects of policy, we are subjects, and we are here to work towards solutions as well.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
I mean, growing up in Las Cruces and El Paso, people have always been at the border. My family's been at the border, right? It's an American story that people come to our borders for trade, travel, tourism, migration. It's not new, but when you contextualize it again as a political problem, and Democrats, I think, have given it this label as a losing issue. No one wants to look at what you have to do to fix it, and I think we're so far from even Democrats stepping up and saying we support our asylum laws. I think we're very much in danger of rolling some of those back. So with that said, it's really important. You asked what people could be doing. People think that even Democratic voters don't care about immigration. They believe that Republican voters will vote for less immigration and they'll vote for more border security and tougher policies. They don't believe that anyone's going to come out and say, like, I want a humane immigration system. And so that is part of some of the narrative shifting that has to be done. And that's, from my perspective, something that's really missing. You can't understand our immigration system without understanding that it was, founded to define what citizenship is, and citizenship for so long has been defined as whiteness. And one of, how I actually got into this issue was actually in some ways academic, sort of studying at what point does an immigrant earn citizenship when you look back from slavery, right? That's when we really first started to wrestle with who gets full citizenship. And our laws, it's a really short history up to where we are today. And in our history, we have always had almost like a caste system of non-citizens as part of our economy, as part of our culture. The nationalities and the race and ethnicities have shifted. Probably for this century, it has largely been actually Mexicans and now Central Americans. But that is foundationally to the history of our laws, the history of the case law on this issue, what the courts look at, right? So it's baked in. And I do think there's a desire amongst policymakers to say, no, we're just looking at immigrants as foreign nationals. They are not raced. They're just, once again, that kind of dehumanizing. They're just numbers. But there's no way you can look at it as sort of a moment like when 10,000 Haitians migrated to the border of Texas, and the images that we saw with our law enforcement and those, it was like parents getting food for their children. That if that doesn't, there's no clear illustration of how that was a moment where you could imagine the U.S. government responding and screening them for, interviewing them for the reasons that they were here, seeing if there was anything our laws could do to provide protection. None of that was there. And, just months later, we had up to, it was a huge number, 20,000 Ukrainians. They were there, they were at our border in huge numbers in Tijuana. Totally different response, right? Rules were changed, processes were changed. All of a sudden they were brought in, right? And that, if you can't see how American attitudes on race influence those decisions, then I think we're not going to be able to fix the policies and make them more equitable.
I think the main reason that the immigration system, as you noted, has not been updated since the 1990s. 1986 was the last legalization program, but there were some laws in the 1990s to update the legal immigration system and to toughen the policy at the border, is because right now Democrats and Republicans have completely different understandings of how the system should work, and they have starkly different priorities. So Democrats right now, their priority is to legalize dreamers and other folks who have been here in the U.S. for years without legal documents. And Republicans, their priority is to implement more tougher policies at the border to restrict asylum significantly, and in some cases to limit legal immigration. And that's something that I think the Trump administration challenged very successfully, that bipartisan consensus that immigration is a good thing for the country. And now we're seeing more and more Republicans adopt that philosophy that immigration should be limited and that the U.S. should try to do everything it can to deter people from coming to the border, even if that means, overriding decades of asylum law and humanitarian obligations. So I think that's the main reason that we haven't seen any sort of compromise, because both parties are unwilling or unable in many ways to make very hard and tough concessions.
I think that we as a country have to make a decision of what we're going to do with our immigration law. Because day to day, I see clients and I tell them that if they have been persecuted in their home countries, or they fear that they are going to be persecuted in their home country, they have the possibility to ask for asylum in the United States. But in reality, the processing times are so long that we are not giving the opportunity to these people to have a dignified life in the United States. And the asylum definition is that you ask for asylum and you can be here in the United States. So that means that the person needs to support their children, be with their family, have an employment authorization. In reality, sometimes I file an asylum application at the USCIS office and I have to wait 9 months for the receipt to be issued. Simply the receipt, which is only an acknowledgement of the agency saying we received it. And in the meantime, my client lost housing, could not work, had 2 kids, had a husband outside in her home country, and the social worker called me gazillion times telling me, where is the receipt? I need to help this person. And I don't have anything to tell them. I sent 2 emails to each office each week for 9 months. And then I received the receipt. And when my client finally got the AID card, which is the employment authorization, she was sitting across me at my office and said, so when can I start working? And I said, well, you can start today. She started crying because she had waited for a long time to be able to have a dignified life in the United States when she has the right to do that, because we as a country have decided that we are going to give asylum to people that have been persecuted or fear persecution in the future.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, because hope is my line. And we deal with this situation, and perhaps hearing it, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, this is hopeless, right? And well, frankly, when I see these kinds of situations, it drives me to my knees, and but when I get there, then I realize that I can discover God working in these situations, and I am blessed to be involved. I'm blessed to know these people who are arriving at our border. I'm so grateful to be in El Paso because they have strengthened my faith in these encounters. I have met Jesus Christ. And if you want to be strengthened in hope, meet an immigrant. You know, because they will show you just how grace can work in a person's life when, from our perspective, a non-faith perspective, there is none. You'll find it in them. Incredible faith. These issues are bellwethers in a certain way about the health of our community, about the health of our country, about our health for people of faith, right? Especially Christians, because our teaching is so clear. In our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, we have such a beautiful statement about all people being created equal and being endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We all know those lines, right? But there's a dirty little secret about the way that we have failed as a nation to really adopt that statement as our own, saying that it's not a gift from the government to give certain rights to some and to withhold them from others. Our dirty little secret is that we've chosen to divide people according to whether they are worthy to receive these rights or not. And that is found in the whole history of what has been called by a fellow bishop the original sin of our country, the sin of racism. And I'm not quick to throw those words out, but all I'm saying is that there are signs everywhere that we've failed to recognize the dignity of every human person and to listen to their pain and their suffering and to respond to them in a way that upholds the dignity, not just of those who are immigrants, not just those who are people of color, but all of us. When we fail to recognize the dignity of one, we fail to recognize all of our human dignity.